Hi.
Hey,
Hi,
good to see
Ranjan.
you. Come.
Thank you. So, Ranjan, how are things with you? What is going on in life?
Things are good. In fact, you come at an interesting time. I have 2 design thinking classes in 2 sections
Wow, that's
at this
lovely.
point. Yeah.
Ranjan, first up, you said that you have a class on design thinking. A lot of people talk about design thinking. What exactly is design thinking?
It's an approach to innovative problem solving, and it is particularly well suited to what we call ill-structured or semi-structured or unstructured problems. And fundamentally, it involves 3 or 4 things. One, it involves understanding the problem through the eyes of the user, where the user is more than the customer. The user is anybody who comes into contact with that problem has an informed view, somebody you can learn from. So then you use those conversations through the eyes of users to reframe the problem. And then you use creativity techniques, ideation techniques to come up with potential solutions. And again, what you then do is, having come up with a solution, you take that solution in the form of some kind of a tangible representation. You call it a prototype. Take it back to users, and then the whole process iterates again. Right? And it is being applied to a wide variety of problems, including corporate innovation problems and including new product development. But also, now I find a lot of my personal work is around design thinking for social problems. So, for instance, I am doing work around design thinking for transgender livelihoods. Design thinking for instance, in India, you have a unique problem that at the age of 18, orphans are pushed out into the world. So the orphanages take care of you till you're 18. And suddenly at the age of 18, you're pushed out. No social support, education, nothing. So how might we integrate orphans into society? So it's being used for a wider variety of problems. But given that the number of problems that are unstructured, multi-stakeholder, interdisciplinary is going up, it's seen as a very valuable application by corporates. So every BITSoM student will be a design thinker.
Great.
Put it
Great.
that way.
Do you see design thinking in your cabin?
I think the people who designed this institution were fairly user-centric. I think if you look at this institution, you will see that the amount of space that we have taken for cabin space is much less than the amount of open space that we have kept as conversation space. So it has been designed as an institution where students can meet and converse. Culturally, you see every cabin here is glass. Every student can see what I am doing. It is also conveying something about approachability, that I walk out of my room and my room is located where one of the most voluminous classes. So it's not designed to be a quiet campus. It's designed to be a noisy, vibrant campus. It's designed to be a place where a teacher or an administrator or a leader or a staff member can walk out of their work and they will have 5 students nearby. So that's by design. We want those conversations to happen on a day-to-day basis.
Right.
So I think there is a lot of that. I also think it's there in the way we are building this institute, where the students have a say in a lot of things. If a student has an idea, they know they can approach you, they know they will be listened to. And there are many examples of a student coming up with an idea today, and the idea resulting in an actual thing that we are doing, and then it gets institutionalized over the course of the next few days.
Can we walk out and see the campus with you and then talk?
Yeah, my pleasure.
Let's go. Ranjan, we are out of your cabin and we are in the campus that you probably are going to take the class. Tell me, when you are going to a class, what exactly do you look for in a classroom? Because you have been part of a B school where profile-based selections have happened, right? Yeah, go ahead.
So your question is, what is the profile of a class that you look for? So I think if you're looking for the profile of a class, the question is, what is the student you're trying to build? Right? And the student you're trying to build today is learnable. The student you're trying to build today is somebody who can collaborate well. And the student you're trying to build today is somebody who can handle a diverse workforce. The workforce is going to be multicultural, multi-locational, sometimes remote, sometimes in your face. So what is the profile of the student you are looking for comes from that. So I think 3 or 4 things. Historically, we are one of the institutions, and even SPJMR was, that believes in what I would call profile-based admissions, where CAT scores or GRE scores or GMAT scores, which typically are a test of 2 things. They are a test of what we call general intelligence and a test of conscientiousness. They do not measure curiosity. They do not measure initiative. They do not measure creativity. So these are things you get from a profile. And a profile, it typically means saying, I'm not going to interview you around your mathematical ability and your English ability, because that's there in the test. I want to know something you are passionate about. Did you have depth? But the way you look for that is your interview is a conversation, and you're looking for what people have and not what they don't have, which in itself a departure, right? So you don't ask people to solve calculus problems in your interview, right? So you build on that, then you create an environment of approachability, because without the environment of approachability, diversity does not lead to inclusion. And it is diversity plus inclusion plus collaboration that creates the mix of the leader that you want.
Right. Ranjan, I know that you have a class to go to, but can I request you to, sit down for some time and break all of these down that you just talked about, so that I can ask you specific questions around these as well.
Sure.
Let's have a seat. Let's talk about gender diversity, and that's also a mix that often is a miss when we talk about these schools. How have you made sure that this particular institute does not fall back? Is it a conscious choice while you are selecting students as well, that you know for a fact that voices from other sections of the society other than male students who are a dominant figure in the B school space should also be heard?
I think it comes from an interview process which looks at the whole human being. I have seen this both at SPJMR and at BITSoM, that if you have an interview process which is focused on self-awareness and is focused on getting people to talk about the things that matter to them, as well about character and values, women tend to have thought through, and this is a very slightly sweeping generalization, they tend to have thought through some of these issues better. So just by having a broader interview process, see, what happens today, I think at a larger level, is that we value CAT and GMAT scores and we weight them highly. CAT and GMAT scores are weighted towards quant. Engineers tend to do better in that quant and CAT and GMAT section.
Right.
Engineering itself still has a very predominant gender bias. So if you have a high engineering component, you will have a bad gender issue.
Okay.
So, I think looking for multiple profiles, that is one. The second is a reputation builds on itself. So I do believe it helps to be in Bombay, because Bombay is seen as a safe city. Right? It's a safe city for women. Then I think word of mouth, because by the time you've had 2 batches, and let's say your 2 batches have had gender ratios of 35% or so, that's why you get the gender ratio of 45%. Because now you have a critical mass of women candidates who have experienced the institute and said that this is an institute which is inclusive and friendly. Right? The second is, I think, some of our processes, like the personal development program, etc. So the whole psychological safety that is built on campus, I think that is a very, very kind of important thing. So I think you can do something at the admission stage. That's batch 1. Batch 2, batch 3, it's admission plus word of mouth from batch 1 and batch 2. Right? So the word of mouth about the experience that you're creating on campus, I think that makes a lot of difference.
We deal with egos, we deal with, how can someone with lesser work experience come in and teach me about certain thing that I have probably been doing for 3, 4, 5 years in my life. Does it happen often that these kind of conflicts also germinate, and then how do you as a faculty member or a founding dean actually look at these matters and resolve it?
So initially there will always be these questions that you will get. I am a fresher. How do I handle myself in a class full of experienced people? Or the experienced people coming into the class saying, the freshers can learn from me. Now, both of these are attitudes that in the long run are not conducive to the cohort. So we lean towards work experience. We have a small composition of freshers. We have a larger component of experienced people. But I think the first thing is to get rid of this idea that if you had no corporate work experience, you don't have managerial work experience. So the family is a place where there's a lot of managerial work experience. If you've run a club or a committee or stood for an election in college, you've had managerial work experience. So managerial work experiences or leadership experiences are a part of your life experiences. So that's the first thing. The second thing that quickly happens is that the corporate person with 4 years of work experience has internalized the structure of organizations. So the bright fresher is able to ask questions which sometimes the experienced person is not able to ask.
Right.
Because they are looking at the organization afresh. And somebody who looks at it afresh might say, now with technology, why do we need the functional organization? Somebody who's worked for 4 years has seen and internalized the functional organization. So the diversity of questioning, it is your job to facilitate that environment where every voice is heard.
Correct.
It is your job, one, through socialization, but also I think every faculty. The second thing at BITSoM, I think, is a lot of our faculty are international. And I think this is generally true. That if you look at faculty from the United States particularly, their pedagogical approaches are far more two-way and less sage on the stage. So if you have a sage on the stage who's lecturing what you need diversity, you're not leveraging the diversity in the classroom. It's when you're doing a lot of group work, it's when there is a lot of interaction, it's when you're encouraging people to question, when you're doing a lot of things in small groups. That's when all of this comes out. So the idea is that different people think differently. To solve problems of tomorrow, which are complex, I need multiple lenses. No single individual embodies all these lenses.
Right.
The diversity brings out these lenses. They also teach the single individual to value different lenses and hopefully to acquire some of those lenses for himself or herself.
Got it. You mentioned about the fact that a lot of your batch is actually WorkX, and when you bring in these people with WorkX, does it become easier for you to place them?
I do think that there are many industries. You could look at technology, you could look at general management, you could look at strategy roles, to a certain extent even marketing roles, where people are valuing work experience. Also, people with work experience are able to hit the ground running relatively faster. So if you talk to career services team, they will tell you people with work experience are probably a little easier to place. Where again there is a sweet spot, and I think that sweet spot is 2 to 5 years. At beyond 5 years, I think it becomes a custom placement, because now they're looking at middle management. And most of the recruitment at B schools is entry level to lower middle management. It's not really beyond that. There is still a section of companies which likes management trainee roles, where they would be happy with 2 years of work experience, but they will take the bright fresher also, because they're willing to train the person in what it takes to work in a company, but they want that questioning.
Right.
So I think if you combine naivete with curiosity, then corporate India still values that, subject to a set of other skills, of course. So there is a room for a refresher.
Right. Ranjan, I hope that you're not getting late for the class. We can actually walk.
Maybe we can walk to the class
your-
and yeah. So
and then we can continue
Yeah,
this conversation. In your experience so far, in any of the cases that you probably have discussed, have you seen people having certain stereotypes and then probably that has been shattered because of the different ideas that has been discussed?
I think that happens in 1 month, and it happens in many schools. And that after 1 month, people lose a lot of their misconceptions about who is what, because I think sometimes there is a mental pecking order of institutions which are tier 1. There is a mental pecking order of CAT score, for instance, and they very quickly realize. So I think that happens very easily, but the biggest tool for that is the study group. So the moment you have study groups which are diverse and people are interacting in those groups, then those stereotypes are broken. We also in orientation have a lot of exercises which make them kind of interact with each other, see it. BITSoM has got this entire set of courses called Winning at the Workplace, which do a lot around this. I mean, we have a theatre course.
Okay.
Expressions through theatre, where people become aware of their body language, they learn to listen, they learn to recognize different perspectives. And the people who don't listen well, they realize that they don't listen well.
Okay.
So that's a big one. So if you're looking at diversity, where does it manifest that I need to understand diversity? Or I need to look at differences in a non-judgmental way, right? It is when you realize that you have what I call a single story of a human being.
Right.
Right? So that ability to listen, I think, is something that they leverage quite well.
Right. Any stories that you have, any success stories where you thought that somebody who doesn't listen has come to your classroom, and then you probably have had these sessions that you have had, and then you saw a remarkable difference in the way they have approached the classroom or the studies in general?
There are many. There will be many where, okay, so let me put it this way. In design thinking, we have interviews. Students go out and take interviews. Just, we are talking about this Kellogg project. So they had to go out and interview Kirana store people.
Right.
And you had to interview them about sales and merchandising. Many people went and finished these interviews in 10 minutes. And when they came back to me, I told them that the interview should last at least 40 minutes.
Right.
Because you don't talk to the Kirana store person about his sales, because that's not what he wants to talk about. Talk to him about how he started running a Kirana store. Now that ability to ask those questions and listen to the other person's story, and listen to the other person's story with this idea, I don't know the right question to ask. So I have to see it. So they start having conversations very differently once they realize, okay, so there's a difference we like to talk about, the difference between interrogation and conversation.
Right.
What is the language you would have if you were talking to somebody across a table? Okay, and I think this particular element of listening is very important today, because many people have forgotten the art of face-to-face conversation. You hear of relationships being concluded on a WhatsApp message, right?
Right.
So it's very valuable. I think we do a lot on conversations, we do a lot on listening, we do a lot also on stereotypes. And what are the judgments you form? You just walk into a conversation with somebody, you already 4 judgments.
Correct.
Just becoming aware of those judgments and holding your fire. And just this, there is this line that I use, that the design thinking mindset, I don't know, I don't understand. Having that I don't know and I don't understand as positive things. The fact that I don't know makes me open to new knowledge. The fact that I don't understand, if I don't understand, there are 10 other people who don't understand, and I should not hesitate to say, I don't understand. So those are attitudes of learners, and I think they build.
Ranjan, I know you have a class and you probably are heading towards that, but can I have like 2 more minutes, 5 more minutes?
Yeah, we'll do 5 minutes.
Sure. Let's have a seat then. One last question. You're walking into a class. When you're walking into a class, what kind of a class do you expect? Which are the students do you want in that classroom to be?
I want an environment in the class which is enjoyable, curious and fun. I want to walk into the class and see energy. So I don't have a type of student. I think for me, my entire class must be learnable. And I want the class to question aggressively. We get that in our classes. MBA courses can be tiring. So one of the first things you do when you walk into a class is you look at the energy level. And we have our own set of things, from videos to music to exercises. to energize a class when you need to. But typically the biggest thing I look at is your students must be in class because they like being in your class, not because there's an attendance norm. I think that is a very strong value.
Well, thank you very much,
Thank you very much.
Ranjan, and I will let you go attend your
Sure.
class.